Welcome to my expat stories. This one's about doing everything right and still getting destroyed. Barry's 61, retired Spanish teacher from Melbourne, taught the language for 30 years. Went to Bogotá to perfect his accent with a native speaker. Found Carolina online. Professional teacher. Real credentials. 3 months of proper lessons. Then she stopped charging. Said she had feelings for him. He had feelings back. But here's the twist. Barry recorded his lessons on his phone for practice. The audio backed up to cloud. If you think speaking the language protects you, this'll mess with your head. Here's Barry. Right. So I'm sat in a hostel in Bogotá at 2 a.m, listening to an audio file on my laptop. It's a recording from my phone. From 5 days ago, I'm listening to a Spanish lesson I had with my teacher Carolina. We're doing past subjunctive, conjugating verbs. My voice sounds relaxed, happy. Her voice is patient, professional. Then about 40 minutes in, my voice gets quieter, slower. I'm slurring a bit. I sound drunk. I wasn't drunk. I'd had 1 glass of wine. Then my voice stops. There's silence for maybe 10 seconds. Then I hear her voice again. But she's not speaking to me. She's speaking to someone else, in Spanish, fast Spanish. And she's laughing. I've listened to this recording 11 times now. I understand every word, and I wish I didn't. Let me start from the beginning. I'm Barry. I'm 61. I taught Spanish at a high school in Melbourne for 30 years. Started in 1993. Retired in December 2023. Good pension. Decent super. Paid off house in Camberwell. 2 kids, both grown, both doing well. Divorced 8 years. Amicable split. We're still mates. She's remarried. Good for her. I'm not fluent in Spanish. I mean, I taught it. I can read it. I can write it. I can have a conversation. But I'm not native level. My accent's all right, but it's got that Australian flatness to it. After 30 years of teaching, I'd never actually lived in a Spanish-speaking country. Never immersed myself properly. Always wanted to. Just never got around to it. Work, kids, life. You know how it goes. When I retired, I thought, bugger it. I've got time now. I've got money. I'll go to South America, spend a few months, work on my Spanish, come back fluent. Maybe even go back to teaching part-time with a proper native accent. That was the plan. I looked at a few countries. Spain was too expensive. Mexico felt too touristy. Argentina was interesting, but I'd heard the accent there is tricky. Then a mate of mine who'd been to Colombia said, try Bogotá. He said it's got great weather. It's affordable. The Spanish is clear. People are friendly. Good expat community. Safe enough if you're smart about it. I said, all right. Bogotá it is. I booked a flight for January 2024. Got an Airbnb in Chapinero. Nice area. Close to restaurants and cafes. Quiet street. I figured I'd stay a month. Maybe 2. See how I felt. If I liked it, I'd extend. If not, I'd try somewhere else. Landed on a Tuesday. Got a taxi from the airport. Driver spoke no English. I spoke Spanish to him. Basic stuff. Where are you from? How long are you staying? He seemed impressed. Told me my Spanish was very good. I said thanks, mate. Felt pretty chuffed about that. Got to the Airbnb, 2-bedroom flat. Modern. Clean. Balcony with a view of the mountains. I unpacked. Had a shower. Went for a walk. Found a cafe. Had a coffee and a croissant. Sat there watching people. Felt good. Felt like I'd made the right call. That first week I just wandered around, went to museums, parks, markets, practiced my Spanish everywhere, ordered food, asked for directions, chatted to shopkeepers. My Spanish was coming back. Not perfect, but decent. I could hold a conversation, but I wanted more. I wanted to sound like a local. Wanted to lose the Aussie accent. Wanted to understand fast colloquial Spanish. The kind you hear on the street. In cafes, between mates. So I decided to get a proper teacher. I googled Spanish tutors in Bogotá, found a few websites, Facebook groups, ads on notice boards in cafes. Most of them looked dodgy, but one caught my eye. A woman named Carolina. Her ad was professional. Said she had a degree in linguistics. 10 years of teaching experience. Specialised in accent reduction for advanced learners. That's exactly what I needed. Her rate was reasonable. 50,000 pesos an hour. About 18 Aussie dollars. Bloody cheap compared to Melbourne. I messaged her on WhatsApp, introduced myself, said I was a retired Spanish teacher from Australia, looking to improve my accent. She replied within an hour, said she'd love to help. We arranged a trial lesson for that Saturday, 2 o'clock, at a cafe near Parque 93. Public place. Safe. Smart. I got there early, ordered a coffee, waited. She arrived right on time. Early 40s maybe? Jeans, blouse, glasses, professional. Looked like a teacher. We shook hands. She spoke English. I said, let's do this in Spanish. She smiled, said perfecto. We spent an hour going through my Spanish. She asked me questions, I answered. She corrected my pronunciation, pointed out where my accent was slipping into English phonetics, gave me exercises to practice. It was a proper lesson, not some tourist chat, actual linguistic coaching. By the end of the hour, I was impressed. She knew her stuff. She said I had a strong foundation but needed work on vowel sounds and rhythm. I said that's exactly what I thought. She said we could meet twice a week if I wanted. I said yes, absolutely. We met every Tuesday and Thursday for the next 3 months. Always at cafes, sometimes at Parque 93, sometimes near my flat, sometimes in Usaken. She'd bring materials, worksheets, audio files, verb charts. We'd work through them. She'd correct me. I'd practice. She was good, really good, patient, knowledgeable. She made me feel like I was actually improving. After about 6 weeks, I noticed we were chatting more. Less structured lesson, more conversation. We'd talk about books, music, travel. Her life in Bogotá, my life in Melbourne. She told me she'd grown up in Medellin, moved to Bogotá for university, studied linguistics, always loved teaching, never married, no kids, said she'd focused on her career. I told her about my divorce, my kids, teaching high school, retirement. She seemed genuinely interested, asked questions, remembered details from previous conversations. By week 8, we weren't really doing lessons anymore. We were just meeting up, talking in Spanish. Sometimes she'd correct me, sometimes she wouldn't. It felt more like hanging out with a mate than a formal lesson. But I was still paying her 50,000 pesos every session. Seemed fair. She was giving up her time. Then in week 9, she said something that surprised me. We were sitting at a cafe near my flat. We'd just finished talking about Colombian literature. Garcia Marquez, Mutis. She looked at me and said in Spanish, "Barry, I need to tell you something. I don't want you to pay me anymore." I said, "What? Why?" She said, "Because this doesn't feel like teaching anymore. It feels like friendship, and I don't want to charge a friend." I said, "Carolina, you're giving up your time. You should be paid." She said, "No." She said, "I enjoy our conversations. You're interesting. I learn from you too. Let's just meet as friends." I didn't know what to say. Part of me thought, this is weird. But another part of me thought, maybe she's just a decent person. Maybe she actually likes spending time with me. I'm not ugly. I'm not boring. I've lived an interesting life. Why wouldn't she want to be mates? So I said, "All right, if you're sure." She said, "I'm sure." We kept meeting twice a week, same schedule, but no money exchanged. Just 2 people hanging out, talking, in Spanish. Week 10, she suggested we go to a museum, Gold Museum. I said, "Yeah, sounds good." We went on a Thursday afternoon, spent 3 hours walking around looking at pre-Columbian artifacts. She explained the history. I asked questions. We got lunch after. Empanadas and coffee. It felt like a date, not a lesson, not a friendship. A date. And I was fine with that. I liked her. She seemed to like me. We were both single, both adults. Why not? Week 11 we went to Monserrate, took the cable car up, walked around the church, looked at the view of Bogotá. It was beautiful. Clear day. You could see the whole city. We sat on a bench, talked about life. She said she was happy I'd come to Bogotá. Said she'd been lonely before we met. Most of her friends were married with kids. She felt like she was falling behind. I said I know that feeling. After my divorce, I felt the same. Like everyone had moved on except me. She put her hand on mine, said, "I'm glad we met, Barry." I said, "Me too." That night I went back to my flat and thought about her. About us. Was this something? Was this real? Or was I just a lonely 61-year-old bloke reading too much into a friendship with a younger woman? I didn't know, but I wanted to find out. Weeks at 12, she invited me to her apartment. Said she'd cook dinner, traditional Colombian food. Ajiaco. I said I'd love that. She said, "Come Friday night, 7 o'clock. She gave me her address. Cala 63, near Parkway. I said I'll be there. Friday came. I was nervous, I don't know why. I'd been on dates before, but this felt different. This felt like something that mattered. I showered, put on a nice shirt, jeans, cologne, grabbed a bottle of wine from a shop near my flat, walked to her place. 20-minute walk. Got there at 7 sharp. Her building was nice. 4 stories. Secure entrance. I buzzed her apartment. She answered. Said come up. 4th floor. I took the stairs. Got to her door. She opened it. She looked lovely. Dress. Hair down? Smiling. She said welcome. Come in. Her apartment was small but nice. Open plan living room and kitchen. Bedroom off to the side. Bathroom, balcony. Smelled amazing. Something cooking. She said the ajiaco's nearly ready. I handed her the wine. She said thank you. Let me open this. We sat on her couch. Drank wine. Talked. The conversation was easy. Natural. Like we'd known each other for years. She brought out the ajiaco. We ate at her little dining table. It was delicious. She said her mum taught her to make it. I said your mum's a legend. She laughed. Said she'd tell her that. After dinner we went back to the couch. She poured more wine, put on music, Colombian stuff. Soft, Latin guitar. We talked about Melbourne, about Bogotá, about what I'd do when I went back. She said, do you have to go back? I said, well, yeah. My kids are there, my house, my life. She said, but you could have a life here too, couldn't you? I looked at her. She was serious. I said, I don't know. Maybe. She said, I'd like that, if you stayed. And that's when I realised, this wasn't just friendship. This was something more. She had feelings, real feelings, and so did I. I leaned in, kissed her. She kissed back. We stayed like that for a while, kissing, holding each other. It felt right. It felt real. Then I started feeling weird. Not emotionally weird, physically weird. My head felt heavy. My vision was blurry. I pulled back, said, Carolina, I think I've had too much wine. I feel a bit off. She said, oh no, do you want to lie down for a minute? I said, yeah, maybe. She helped me to the couch, said, lie here, rest. I'll get you some water. I lay down. My body felt like it weighed 1,000 kilograms. I couldn't move properly, couldn't think straight. I heard her voice, saying something. Couldn't make it out. Then nothing, just black. I woke up and it was light. Bright light coming through a window. My head was pounding. My mouth tasted like metal. I tried to sit up, couldn't. My body wasn't working. Everything felt wrong, heavy, slow. I managed to turn my head. I was on a couch, but it wasn't Carolina's couch. Or maybe it was, I couldn't tell. Everything looked different. Empty. I lay there for I don't know how long. Maybe 10 minutes. Maybe an hour. Eventually I got my arms working. Pushed myself up. Sat up. Looked around. It was her apartment, but it wasn't. The furniture was there, the couch, the table, but everything else was gone. The photos on the walls, the books on the shelf, the kitchen stuff. All gone, just empty shelves, empty walls. I stood up, stumbled to the bedroom. Door was open. Bed was still there, but nothing else. Closet empty, drawers empty, bathroom empty. No toiletries, no towels, nothing. I went back to the living room. That's when I saw it. A piece of paper on the coffee table, folded. I picked it up, opened it. It was handwritten. In Spanish it said, Lo siento, profesor. Las lecciones fueron reales. Esto es negocio. Sí. Sorry, professor. The lessons were real. This is business. Sí. I stood there staring at that note, reading it over and over. My brain wasn't working properly. I couldn't process what was happening. Then it hit me. She'd drugged me, robbed me, and left me a bloody note. I checked my pockets. Nothing. Phone gone. Wallet gone. Watch gone. Keys to my flat. Gone. Everything. I was standing in an empty apartment with nothing. Just that note. I tried the door. Unlocked. I walked out. Down the stairs. My legs were shaking. Got to the lobby. Security guard was there. Different guy from when I'd arrived. I tried to talk to him. In Spanish. Asked about the woman in apartment 404. He said no one lives there. It's been empty for a month. I said that's impossible. I was just here last night. She lives here. He shrugged. Said the owner rents it out sometimes. Short term. Cash. He doesn't keep records. I walked out onto the street. No phone, no money. No idea what to do. Started walking toward Chapinero, toward my flat. Took maybe 45 minutes. My head was killing me. Everything was spinning. Got to my building. Told the security guard I'd lost my keys. He recognized me. Let me in. I went upstairs. Tried my door. Locked. Remembered I'd hidden a spare key above the door frame. Felt for it. Opened the door. Went inside. Sat on my couch. Tried to think. What had happened? How long had I been out? I looked at the clock. It was 11 in the morning. Saturday. I'd gone to her place Friday night at 7. That was 16 hours ago. 16 hours. Gone. I remembered nothing after lying down on a couch. Then I remembered. My laptop. It was on my desk. I went to check. Still there. They hadn't taken it. Maybe they didn't know I had it. Maybe they were in a hurry. I opened it. Logged in, went to my banking app. My stomach dropped. Bank account. 4 withdrawals. $10,000 total. That's the daily limit. Credit card. Maxed. $6,000. Random purchases all over Bogotá. PayPal. $2,400 transferred out. Total damage. $18,400. Gone in 16 hours. I sat there staring at the screen. $18,400. 3 months of lessons. 3 months of trust. 1 dinner. 1 glass of wine. And they'd taken everything accessible. I called my bank. Disputed the transactions. They said they'd investigate international fraud. Hard to recover. Might take months. Probably wouldn't get anything back. I said fine. Called my credit card company. Same story. I was out 18 grand and there was nothing I could do. I spent the rest of that day in my flat. Didn't eat, didn't shower. Just sat there trying to process it. Trying to remember. But there was nothing. Just black. From lying on her couch to waking up 16 hours later. Nothing in between. Then I remembered something. I used to record our lessons. Back when they were actual lessons. I'd record the audio on my phone so I could listen back later. Practice pronunciation. It was a teacher habit. I'd done it for years with my own classes. But I'd kept doing it even after the lessons became just hanging out. Just habit. I'd recorded our conversation at her apartment. On Friday night. Before I passed out. I opened my laptop. Went to iCloud. Checked my phone backups. My phone was gone, but the data backed up automatically. I looked through the files. There it was. Audio file from Friday. Duration, 2 hours, 14 minutes. I clicked play. The first 40 minutes were normal. Our conversation at dinner, talking about the ajiaco, about Melbourne, about whether I'd stay in Bogotá. Then my voice started slowing down. Slurring. I sounded drunk, but I hadn't been drunk. I'd had maybe 2 glasses of wine. Then my voice stopped. There was silence. Maybe 10 seconds. Then I heard her voice. But she wasn't talking to me. She was talking to someone else, in Spanish. She said, Ya está, completamente dormido. He's out, completely asleep. Then a male voice. Deep, casual. Like this was routine. He said something about time. She answered. Said they had until 6 in the morning. The drug lasts at least 12 hours. I heard rustling. Movement. Someone going through my pockets. Taking my wallet. My phone. Then I heard my phone unlock. That little sound it makes. They'd used my thumb. Pressed it against the screen while I was unconscious. They were going through my banking apps. Discussing limits. How much they could take. $10,000. Daily limit. Credit card on top of that. PayPal. All of it. The male voice was calm. Professional. Like he'd done this 100 times. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. He said in Spanish, "This one's easier than the last one." The German almost woke up. She laughed. Said, "The professor is perfect. He speaks Spanish. He thinks he knows me. He thinks this is real." The male voice asked how many. How many she'd done. She said, "Con este, 23. With this one, 23. 23. I was number 23. In 2 years. She'd done this 23 times. Then she said something about the police. Said one guy tried reporting it. They didn't believe him. Old gringos looking for young girlfriends. Police think they deserve it. They both laughed at that. The recording went on for another hour. I couldn't listen to all of it. Heard them going through my stuff, taking my watch, my cards, discussing what to leave behind, my laptop, my clothes. Just wanted cash and cards, things they could use immediately. Near the end, I heard her voice again, softer this time. She said in Spanish, "Poor Barry, he was so sweet." The male voice said, "Too sweet. That's why it was so easy." They laughed again. I stopped the recording. I couldn't listen anymore. I sat there staring at my laptop, shaking. Not from fear, from rage, from humiliation, from the realization that every single moment of the past 3 months had been a lie. Every lesson, every conversation, every smile, every laugh. All of it. Theatre. A con. And I'd fallen for it completely. The lessons were real. That's what her note said. And maybe they were. Maybe she actually taught me Spanish. But everything else, the friendship, the connection, the feelings, none of it was real. I was marked number 23. Another old gringo looking for a young girlfriend. Another easy target. I thought about going to the police, but I'd heard what she said on the recording. One guy tried. They didn't believe him. Thought he deserved it. I was a 61-year-old man who'd gone to a younger woman's apartment alone at night. Who'd had wine. Who'd developed feelings. The police would laugh at me, tell me I should have known better, and maybe I should have. I stayed in my flat for 2 days. Didn't go out, didn't talk to anyone. Just sat there replaying everything. Every conversation. Every moment. Looking for signs I'd missed. But there weren't any. She'd been perfect. Professional at first, then friendly, then romantic. Every step felt natural. Earned. Real. That's what made her good. That's what made it work. On Monday I went to a police station in Chapinero, told them what happened. They took a statement, wrote it down, asked for her details. I gave them her name, her phone number, the address of the apartment. They said they'd investigate, but I could tell they didn't care. One of them asked me how old she was. I said early 40s. He smirked, asked if we'd been dating. I said we'd been friends. He nodded, said they'd look into it. I never heard back. On Tuesday I went back to the apartment building. Different security guard. I asked about Carolina, described her. He said he'd seen her. She rented the apartment for a week, paid cash, left Saturday morning with some guy, had a bunch of bags, looked like they were moving. I asked if she came back. He said no, haven't seen her since. I asked if he had any other information. He said no, just her first name, and it probably wasn't even real. I went to a cafe, sat there with a coffee, felt numb, lost. Didn't know what to do. Then this bloke sat down at the table next to me. White guy, maybe 50. American accent. He ordered a coffee, pulled out his phone, started scrolling. I heard him sigh, looked over. He caught me looking. Said, "Rough day?" I said something like that. He said, "You all right, mate?" I said, "Yeah, just dealing with some stuff." He nodded. Said, "Bogotá stuff or back home stuff?" I said, "Bogotá. Scam?" I looked at him. Said, "How do you know?" He said, "You've got the look. I had it too, 6 months ago." We started talking. His name was Michael. From Ohio. Came to Bogotá last year. Met a woman. They became friends. Then more than friends. She invited him over. Drugged him. Took 12 grand. Same story. Same method. I said, "Describe her." He pulled up a photo on his phone. Showed me. It was her. Carolina. Same face. Different hair. But definitely her. I showed him the note she'd left me. He read it, said, "Same handwriting. Look." He showed me a photo of a note she'd left him. Different words, same handwriting, same signature. Just an initial. See, I told him about the recording, about what I'd heard. He went pale, said, 23, bloody hell, I'm one of 23. I said, "Looks like it." "Did you go to the police?" I said, "Yeah." They didn't care. He said, "Insane." They took a report, never followed up. I think they just file them and forget about them. We sat there for an hour, comparing stories. She'd used the same apartment, same setup, same method. She'd told him she was from Medellin too, said she'd never married. Focused on her career, same backstory, same script. She'd done it to him, to me, to 21 others. Professional, organised, systematic. Michael said, "I didn't tell anyone back home. Too embarrassed. My mates would rip me apart. 60-year-old idiot falls for a scam. They'd never let me live it down." I said same. Haven't told my kids. Haven't told my mates. Just keeping it to myself. He said, "That's probably what she counts on. We're too embarrassed to warn anyone, so she just keeps doing it." I said, "Probably." He said, "You going back to Australia?" I said, "Yeah." next week. Can't stay here anymore. He said, I'm going back to Ohio in 2 months, just trying to rebuild some savings first. Working online, living cheap. We exchanged details, stayed in touch for a bit, then stopped. Too painful. We were both reminders of how stupid we'd been. I flew back to Melbourne the following Tuesday, changed my flight, couldn't stay in Bogotá anymore. Every cafe reminded me of her. Every street, every conversation in Spanish. I just wanted to be home. My daughter picked me up from the airport. Asked how the trip was. I said it was good. She said, you're back early. I said, yeah. Just felt like coming home. She didn't push. But I think she knew something was wrong. I didn't tell her. Didn't tell anyone. My mates ask about Colombia. I say it was nice, good weather, good food. Practice my Spanish. They ask if I'm going back. I say no. 1 trip was enough. They don't ask why. I've been back for 7 months now. Still in the same house. Still doing the same things. Except now I'm down $18,000 and I don't trust anyone anymore. I don't go to Spanish conversation groups. Don't practice. Don't use the language. It's ruined for me now. 30 years of teaching Spanish and I can't stand hearing it anymore. Sometimes I think about the recording. I've listened to it maybe 20 times. I don't know why. Maybe to remind myself it was real, that it actually happened, that I didn't imagine it. But every time I listen, I hear her laughing, calling me sweet, saying I was too sweet. That's why it was so easy. I've thought about posting her photo online, warning people. But what good would it do? She's probably changed her name again, changed her hair, moved to a different neighbourhood. Or maybe she's in Medellin now, or Cali, doing the same thing, finding lonely men, offering lessons, building trust, drugging them, taking everything. Moving on to the next one. I think about Michael sometimes, the American. Wonder if he ever went back to Ohio. Wonder if he told anyone. Probably not. We're both just blokes who got conned by the same woman and are too embarrassed to admit it. I'm 61 years old. I taught Spanish for 30 years. I went to Colombia to perfect my accent. Met a teacher. Had lessons for 3 months. She stopped charging. Said she had feelings. I had feelings back. She invited me to dinner. I woke up 18 hours later with nothing. $18,000 gone. And an audio recording of her and her boyfriend robbing me. Laughing at me. Mocking me. In the language I'd spent my whole life teaching. I understood every word. That's what hurts most. Not the money. Not the time. Not even the betrayal. It's that I understood every word she said while she was robbing me. Every laugh. Every insult. Every bit of mockery. My Spanish was good enough for that. Good enough to hear exactly what she thought of me. Too sweet. Too easy. Just another old gringo. Number 23. The lessons were real. That's what her note said. Maybe they were. Maybe she actually taught me something. But what I learned wasn't Spanish. What I learned was that 3 months means nothing. That credentials mean nothing. That feelings can be faked. That trust is expensive. That lonely men make stupid decisions. And that speaking the language doesn't protect you. It just means you understand exactly how badly you've been played. I'm Barry, 61, retired Spanish teacher from Melbourne. Went to Bogotá, got drugged and robbed by my Spanish teacher, lost $18,000. Heard the whole thing on a recording I'd made for practice. Understood every word. Met another victim who had the same story. Found out I was number 23. And I'm back in Melbourne now. Not teaching, not speaking Spanish. Just living, trying to forget. But that recording's still on my laptop. And sometimes late at night I listen to it. Just to remind myself that it was real. That she was real. That I really was that stupid. And that's Barry. Did everything right. Was careful, smart, patient. 3 months of lessons with a professional teacher. Fell for her when she stopped charging. Thought it was real. Got drugged at her apartment. Lost 18 grand in 16 hours. But here's the brutal part. Barry used to record his lessons for practice. The recording kept going after he passed out. Backed up to cloud. He listened back later. Heard her and her boyfriend going through his stuff. Laughing. Mocking him in Spanish. She said he was number 23. Said old gringos like him deserve it. Barry understood every single word. He's a Spanish teacher, that's what he does. Except now he can't stand hearing the language anymore. He met another victim at a cafe. Same woman. Same method. Same apartment. They compared notes. Both too embarrassed to tell anyone back home. Barry's back in Melbourne. Not teaching. not travelling, just trying to forget. But that recording's still there, and sometimes he listens to it, just to remember how stupid he was. Ever trust someone completely and find out it was all fake? Drop a comment. And if you've been to Colombia, stay safe out there. This is my expat stories. Keep your guard up.